Who showed out in the Truck and Xfinity Series in 2024, and who left a little to be desired? We break it down with our latest NASCAR team grades tonight on the Backroad.
It's a non-points race, but it is a short race. Checker flag. That's all this race is.
Two from the States.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Backroad. It's In Between Media's Fantasy NASCAR betting show. My name is Elliot Hicks. With me is Seth Woolcock. Tonight, we're going to break down the latest news and happenings in the NASCAR garage and also give out our season grades for the Xfinity and the Truck Series and how they did in 2024. How's it going tonight, Seth?
Hey, great to be with you, Elliot. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving break. And now we're already into December. Crazy, under 2 months away from the Clash at Bowman Gray. Excited for that. And I'm ready to dance with these sports books, man. I'm checking every single day for 2025 Xfinity and Truck Series future odds. I think tonight, looking back, reflecting a little bit on the season that was in the lower series, will keep us vigilant as we remain on the prowl for some new odds. Shout out to you, Elliot, for hanging out with us all off season, as well as the IBT family. If you guys are new to the channel, reminder, easiest way to support Elliot and I and the entire company over here. Like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel. But Elliot, I don't know about you. I've just been circling the sports books these past couple weeks, man, waiting, praying, watching.
Yeah, man, no doubt about it. It'll be great to get those odds out there. We've already talked about some Cup title odds, even some Daytona 500 odds and some standings matchups. But, man, we love betting those lower series too. So we're excited to get to that. Hope everyone's Thanksgiving went well. Hope everyone's Black Friday went well. Up the swag a little bit from some Black Friday sales. We'll show you guys some more of that too. And we got some more stuff for giveaways too from Black Friday. We've still got this big giveaway box sitting over here next to me. And we're giving that away based on you filling out our off-season / postseason survey. It'll let us know what you liked, what you didn't like about the show, the kind of things that you want implemented for when we really get rolling in 2025 when the Clash and the Daytona 500 and everything comes along. It's in the description of the episode. It's in the description of the last 4 or 5 or 6 episodes too. We want to get as many people to fill this out as possible, but we will draw for the giveaway probably next week, if not sometime before Christmas. Seth, you were just saying we want to get it out before Christmas. Got a mystery 124th here. We've got some 164th. We got a little Chase Briscoe koozie we can throw in here. A little, even pulling from the Bowman collection, a little number 88 Bowman car. I got the Keselowski jacket on. We got little Brad Keselowski number 6 throwback action, and just a whole bunch of shit in this box that we want to give to you as a sign of our appreciation. And then for next year, of course, a little more autograph swag. We know people like the autographs, so we'll be sure to include those as well to continue to show our appreciation to the IBT fam.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of on that note, man, we just loaded up on Black Friday with some really sick autograph gear for next year. Excited to give that away to everybody. Actually, part of that survey will answer the question, how do you guys want us to do our giveaways? Should it be to everyone who subscribed to an exclusive bunch? Whatever that is, let us know in the comments below. We appreciate y'all. And speaking of some feedback, TK asking, is the music louder than normal? Oh, maybe a loud intro drop. I don't know. Maybe we had a little glitch there. Sorry about that, TK. Didn't mean to hurt your eardrums there, man. That's why we wear earplugs at the track and on the back road, apparently, Elliot.
Yeah, maybe that maybe Dover and Pocono kind of took away some of our hearing, made it a little louder. I don't know. But
apparently, we got Marcus hanging out with us as well, asking what everyone's plan is for the off season. I don't really know if there's an off season for us, Elliot. Like, we're still kind of swinging. We're still waiting for the odds. And in the meantime, we're working on kind of perfecting some things on the channel, on the website as well. So any specific plans for you for the off season?
Nothing too special. I mean, honestly, when we first started doing this show, I kind of liked having the off-season break. We kind of could sit aside for 2 months, not really do shows or anything. This year, I feel totally different. I'm happy that we're still in the groove, staying in it every week and staying with the fam. And like you said, keeping our eyes open for as many odds as we can get as soon as we can get them to throw some more coin out and have some more season-long sweats, because, boy, did we have some fun with them this past year. We will get and look back at the Xfinity and Truck Series teams, but first we have some more silly season happenings and other news in the garage. Let's take a look back in the rear view at some of the news that's come out in the last week or so. So before we get to some new news, we talked about Hyak Motorsports, which is what was JTG Doherty Racing. We weren't too sure how that was all shaking out. First of all, what Hyak means, we learned that it means fast in Chinook jargon, which is a trade language of the Pacific Northwest, which is where Gordon Smith's Hyak Maritime is out of. Seth, I bet you don't know any other Chinook jargon words over there in your.
I can't say I do, my friend. I cannot say I do.
So the ownership group, we weren't sure if Brad Doherty was still involved. He is. He's part of that ownership group.
Let's fucking go, Brad. Let's fucking go, Brad.
Yeah, it is nice to still see him around. Gordon Smith, as we mentioned as well, the primary owner. Ernie Cope, a name a lot of people will recognize. Former crew chief for JTG, for Kevin Harvick Incorporated, for JRM, for RCR. He'd been the competition director over at JTG and now has been apparently promoted into that ownership group, or at least invested into it. And a gentleman by the name of Mark Hughes is also an investor there. So a little more clarity on Hyak Motorsports. Still needing to announce a primary sponsor, but we are excited to see Stenhouse in that 47 out there next year. Still going to be a threat on the super speedways, I think, regardless of what the team's called.
He needs to get like Pep Boys or maybe like some type of auto mechanic service or something with all the cars Ricky Stenhouse has been wrecking over the last couple of years. O'Reilly's maybe. There's no O'Reilly's car. Maybe we get O'Reilly's on that son of a bitch. So yeah.
I got the King's Hawaiian jacket on. Apparently, the Kroger sponsorship moving over to RFK has pissed off King's Hawaiian, and now they want One of the big Kroger racing groups is Bimbo Bakeries, which obviously makes bread. So you can't have rival bread sponsorships. A little bread beef going on in the Cup Garage.
I fucking love NASCAR, man. What else do we have on a news front, Elliot?
That is the best. We got some. We're talking about the lower series, so it's perfect that all these news items are for the lower series. We don't really cover ARCA that much, but a name that people will know is Butterbean, Brendan Queen. He's going to be racing full-time in the Pinnacle Racing Group number 28 next year. That was a team that last year won 8 of 18 races that they entered. They also won 4 poles. Drivers included Connor Zilich, Connor Mosack, Carson Kvapil, Corey Day, and lots of other competitive. They made real competitive runs in ARCA last year. And they're a relatively new team, only founded a couple of years ago, but they're definitely showing some dominance. And getting a guy like Brendan Queen in their cars, it'll be good for him to be full-time and good equipment, continue the rise of some of these late model drivers.
Brother's got a great personality. He's got a sick head of lettuce as well. And he's a damn wheelman at these short tracks. Finished P4 in his first Truck Series start ever last season at North Wilkesboro. If you see any ARCA championship odds floating out there somewhere, this is a guy who might be a decent bet and some pretty good equipment as well. Congrats to Butterbean. This is a great signing all around.
Man, I'd be surprised if he wasn't the favorite, honestly, with how good that car ran. But then again, Connor Zilich is a guy who's full-time Xfinity racing next year, and so is Carson Kvapil. So we still got to see it from Butterbean, but it'll be good to see him run next year. We have some other TRICON news also, but first we'll go to some McAnnally Hilgerman Racing news. Connor Mosack, we just talked about him. He's going to be full-time in their number 81 truck, which is renumbered. They ran the 43 last year with Daniel Dye. Now that's going to be the number 81 team. He's got to run full-time there. Mosack, a guy, a couple ARCA wins in his career, had 9 starts in the Truck Series in 24, got a top 5, 28 starts in Xfinity, most of them coming with Sam Hunt in 2023. Had a couple of top 10s there. Another guy who we haven't seen been able to run a full season yet in some decent equipment, and he'll get that opportunity next year with the team that damn near won the title with one of his teammates last year.
Hard not to be happy for the kid, right, Elliot? He's 25, so kind of a bit older than some of these other prospects. Looked like the real deal, though, in the Xfinity Series this season once he got behind some JRM equipment for 2 races, P6 at Chicago. I think you actually have part of that car.
Yeah, right behind me there, a little front nose piece.
Yeah, and then also led 5 laps at Charlotte Road Course. So this is someone who keep an eye out for him in the Truck Series at the road courses. He could be someone who hits, a pretty favorable outright ticket for you, maybe some top 5s along the way. Also showed in ARCA that he will not go quietly into that good night, Elliot. I mean, this is a guy who is proven he's about elbows up racing down there in that series. So I think we're going to see the same thing in the Truck Series. Great signing all around once again. Yeah,
it's great to see good racers get good opportunities. That definitely seems like the case for Mosack, and also good opportunity for Tyler Ankrum. He and Liuna will return to the number 18 truck there. I think he was a playoff driver last year. Overall, a pretty good little Truck Series driver, has had a few years there. Maybe a guy who maybe doesn't get the opportunity to move up, but you need those guys that can run in trucks and run competitively and not embarrass you, and that's what Ankrum's been.
I like this extension. Career highs last year in top fives with 6, top 10s, 12, led laps as well. Started extremely hot, if you remember, was actually leading the Truck Series in points and cashing bettors a bunch of tickets early on in the year. Kind of cooled off, went through that late summer stretch and was not that great, especially through all those times where you would go 3 or 4 weeks without a Truck Series race. He kind of fell off. Did have a good finish to the season, though, aside from Phoenix. Still, I feel like we're kind of like on this plateau with Tyler Ankrum, right? Like, hasn't won since 2019. His average finish also has not improved since his first full-time season in 2020, 13.4. He is only 23, though, so plenty of time. But I think this is the season where he really needs to step up in this garage, especially with Eckes leaving for the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. I meant to make when we were talking about Mosack. You mentioned almost a little older than a lot of prospects nowadays at 25. It's crazy the shift that the things that the prospects have taken. We have 18-year-olds running full time in the top 3 series when that just didn't happen. I mean, hell, I don't know if you remember when we were kids, the Gillette Young Guns had guys that were 30 and 31 years old running in the Cup Series. They were the Young Guns back in the day. Now a kid 23 years old has been running full time for quite some time. Maybe I'm not giving him the credit he deserves, calling him a truck lifer, because having, 4 or 5 full-time seasons under your belt. Now, maybe it is Franker, but you know what I mean? I want to give these guys credit because, I mean, when Logano did it at 18 and they threw him into that Xfinity right away, it was a surprise because it was something we normally didn't see, and the industry has moved further towards that. So these guys, sometimes it takes gyms a couple more years to move up the ladder and to get more experience. And, the older you get, the wiser you get, we'll say. I can't come up with a better saying than that. So that can help some of these kids.
Yeah, it was funny because I actually saw a picture of Joey Logano in his rookie season in the Cup Series, and it was like a boys with men. You know what I mean? Like, he was literally a child walking around with grown-ass men. It doesn't feel that way anymore, though, right? Like you and I have been in the garages, we've been in the media center, and there's a bunch of young kids walking around. You know what I mean? Ty Gibbs is still probably the youngest full-time driver in the Cup Series, but we're getting younger and younger as the years progress. So excited to see what Tyler Ankrum can do. But it is funny how the overall evolution has changed, and there are just so much younger drivers, younger talent throughout the entire industry.
Yeah, it is funny that we're kind of the young guns, the media center, but then a third of the drivers we're covering are 12 years old, it feels like. But anyway, a couple other truck seats got filled this week. Toni Breidinger will drive the TRICON number 5 truck full-time next year. Has only had a handful of truck starts, ran fairly cleanly and fairly well, didn't lead any laps, hasn't led a lap actually in any of these high-level racing series, but had 4 ARCA top 5s in 23. More than half the races were top 10s, and she was 4th in the ARCA standings last year. Again, one of those young drivers that, being full-time and good equipment, will really see what she has.
Awesome story, regardless of how she performs. Coming from San Francisco, she got her start driving go-karts at Sonoma Raceway with her twin sister, Annie. Annie does stem. Now Tony's still behind the wheel, and she's got a lot of backing, right, Elliot? Celsius, Toyota. We've seen Victoria's Secret on a truck a time or two as well. I also think
Raising Canes and Sunoco, I think, did her whole ARCA year last year. So
I mean, but I think she's got some talent, to be honest with you. P15 in her first ever Truck Series race at Kansas a couple of seasons ago, and Kansas is an intermediate. Like, that's a pretty good run there. She also had a P17 at Nashville. That's pretty decent for a beginner as well at another intermediate. We only really saw her in Daytona in truck equipment this past year, which you can't really take anything hard from. So I'm excited what Toni can do. I think there will be legit times where we are potentially backing her in head-to-head matchups. So I'm hoping she can make the best out of this equipment. Might be a slow start for her, but we'll look for her to catch on later down the stretch in 2025.
Yeah, and she's just another young driver that just will need the seat time. I mean, there's something that I remember from her a couple years ago, one of her first ARCA starts, where she didn't realize she could run wide open at Talladega. So that's, the learning curve starts lower for some people. But then I talked about this when we did the prospect draft. She's got the marketing behind her. She's got clearly a full season of funding to go run one of the, we'll call it one of the 10 best trucks in the garage.
Yeah.
We'll really see what she's got. And certainly won't be any excuses there. And no excuses for Gio Ruggiero either, who's going to run full-time in the number 17 truck for TRICON, replacing Taylor Gray. He was 3rd in the ARCA East points with a win this past year. And in the full season or the full tour ARCA, he ran 10 of 20 races, 7 top 5s, led 105 laps. Clearly a guy that has some talent. another big prospect in the Toyota pipeline that's getting a very good truck as well.
This is someone who seemingly came out of nowhere this past year. I didn't know much about Gio until 2024, but a very promising driver as seen in ARCA. He was a threat to win Dover when we were there in person in the spring. Only 18 years old, just started racing short tracks up in Southern Mass, so a little bit of a mass hole we were dealing with that up here. But so only started racing in 2021, so still very young, but talented. We're seeing that. I would argue, Elliot, maybe it's not the most talented group of Truck Series drivers we've ever seen, but damn it if it isn't the most intriguing.
Yeah, TRICON especially has a really good team going there. We know that Corey Heim will be a good teacher for these two young prospects, and we know that Tanner Gray has got multiple years of relatively decent, clean racing behind his belt as well. So TRICON definitely going to be a team to watch next year, just as it was this past year.
This entire series is going to be great. You got Daniel Hemrick coming back down from the Cup Series, a Xfinity Series champion who's ready to make his mark in the Truck Series again. Like it's going to be, you got Corey Heim, who wants to go scorched earth on everyone for not getting a better ride in the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series. I mean, talk about people who are motivated. This series is going to be must-watch appointment television every single time it's on TV in 2025.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And it certainly is going to be something that we try to make some big money on heading into next year.
Yeah, let us know in the comments below, guys. Who is your favorite driver for 2025 in the Truck Series? Do you think these are all good signings with Gio, Toni, Tyler Ankrum coming back, Connor Mosack? Ellie and I are pretty excited, but we'd love to hear your guys' opinion as well. Anything else from you on a news front before we jump into the tier rankings, Elliot?
Now, I think we've covered it all, but like you mentioned, we'll hop into our tire tiers for the week where we will rank the performances of the Xfinity and the Truck Series teams from last year. Alrighty, so we got our tier list up there. I had to have a little last second screen share there, but hey, we get it done. That's live television, ladies and gentlemen. So we've got, 8 of the top Xfinity teams here that we'll rank for you. Also can talk about some of the others, but these were really the big 8 in the garage. And we have to start with the champions, JR Motorsports. Justin Allgaier, Low Gator. He finally gets it done, wins the title. Won 2 races throughout the seasons, had 10 top 5s, 20 top 10s. Very consistent, solid year for Low Gator. Sam Mayer ended up 9th in the standings. Sammy Smith, a playoff driver as well, 11th. They each had at least a win this year. Sam Mayer went to victory lane 3 times, 8 top 5s, 13 top 10s for him, 7 top 5s, 16 top 10s for Sammy Smith. Brandon Jones, not a great season there, 14th in the standings, just 1 top 5, 8 top 10s. But his ass got thrown out of that ride. He'll head back to JGR next year. But overall for JRM, they've looked more dominant at times, I feel like, but I still feel like you have to give it an A because they got it done for Low Gator. They had 3 or 4 winner race, and they didn't embarrass themselves really throughout the year, outside of that 9 car sometimes.
Yeah, 6 wins isn't necessarily impressive, Elliot. JR Motorsports as a whole, I think, everyone would probably have taken a line if you gave them 7.5, 8. I think most people would have hit the over on that. So a little bit disappointing there, but as a whole, this is just a really good season overall, man. Sam Mayer continues to get it done. He was kind of cursed early in the season with just some bad luck. Same with Justin Allgaier. He might only have 2 wins, but I mean, talk about all the races that slipped out of his hands, including that championship where he's just like, hey, I'm going to let Riley Herbst go around me. I'm going to win this championship for the squad. And but still, Sammy Smith gets a win. 7 top 5 for Sammy Smith. That's a great number, man. Sammy Smith had some damn good runs, especially late in the season. Brandon Jones, when you got Brandon Jones on your team, you're always going to have a little bit of a blemish. So, yeah, I think all things considered, A for JR Motorsports, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Jones, he didn't necessarily even embarrass himself out there. It was just one of those years, and now going back to JGR, maybe he'll be, he was able to get wins in Toyotas where he just wasn't able to in Chevys. Stewart Haas Racing up next. I feel like they were, we had the feel good for them in Cup with Briscoe getting the win, getting to the playoffs. I think it was even better in Xfinity. Cole Custer, pretty dominant year, had a pair of wins, 23 top 10s, just an absurd number there. Ended up runner-up in the points. Riley Herbst, too, showing that he belongs, won a pair of races, ran really consistently, earned himself a 23-11 Cup ride for next year. I'm honestly calling it a success, maybe even to an A level for SHR in their final year as SHR in Xfinity.
Well, I think you're kind of right, Elliot. Like that's kind of the disclaimer we have to include here, right? Is hey, this car, these cars were on the last life support of SHR. This puppy was going out of business, and Cole Custer, a drive of Justin Allgaier's life away from going back to back. That's the only element of this. I think you could say they're a B because they didn't get it done. But all things considered, Riley Herbst got in victory lane twice. Custer found victory lane twice. Cole Custer, 23 top 10. That is an absurd number. It was really him and Allgaier all season long. It was their championship to lose. So I'll give him an A. A minus. I think you got to put him behind Junior Motorsports because they didn't win the title. But if I'm an SHR employee, if I'm an SHR fan on the Xfinity level, you can't help but smile after that hell of a run from this team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And totally fine with them behind JRM, but I had no problem putting them in the A's there. Next up, a team that I don't really know what to do with them in Kaulig Racing. AJ Allmendinger was able to get a win at Vegas to lock him into the championship 4. Wasn't 4th out of 4 there either. Ended up 3rd in the final standings. They had SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, 12th in the points. Wasn't able to advance out of that first round. Got knocked out at the Roval, which was pretty wild. But he had 3 wins all on the road courses. 10 top 10s overall for SVG in his year in the 97. And then they had Josh Williams. Shout out to them for giving him a shot. Shout out to Alloy Employer and all the sponsors that were funding him. But only 4 top 10s for the year. Never really looked all that strong. So, I mean, they're really a mixed bag here. SVG brought some shine to it. Allmendinger making the championship 4 also did. But at times they just really looked out to lunch, especially with that 11 team with Williams.
Yeah, this is a difficult one, right, Elliot? Because, Dinger, he pulls it together late after one of the worst series I can remember him running full-time Xfinity in quite some time. He was really fast at tracks that we weren't expecting him to be, and then, really flamed out at some of these tracks we thought he was going to be a potential top 5 car early in the season, Las Vegas. And I remember, I think it was, what was it Portland or the Glen? One of those races, AJ Allmendinger didn't even get off the start without having issues. So mixed bag for him. SVG though, 10 top 10s, 3 wins, 7 top 5s. Especially I remember he had a top 5 at Indianapolis. I remember he was running good at Talladega at one of these as well. If you would have said beginning of the year, that's
right. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was just say, if you would have said at the beginning of the year, 3 wins, 10 top 10s for SVG, I'd say that's a success.
I was going to say, I think he was even running top 10 at Pocono before getting dumped a couple of times. So definitely showed some improvement there. For me, for Kaulig, what do you think about a C? I think that might be fair.
Oh.
They're a little too harsh.
I think it's too harsh. Josh Williams brings us down for sure, especially considering he was better in some of his previous Xfinity Series equipment that you wouldn't think would be that good. So I would give it a B, though. You got a driver in the championship 4. You probably weren't expecting to do that. SVG, 3 wins, 1 from Dinger. Checking in from the chat here, we got TK. He was weighing in. I think this was on our previous team we were discussing, SHR, saying they had a lot of bad teamwork where drivers took each other out. And then also saying for Kaulig, terrible team carried by 2 great road course drivers. Otherwise, AJ was mostly good, but not good enough. That's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I was thinking C, but you're right. They did get championship 4. They won 4 races. They got it done when it counted. So I'm okay with a B, but if there's any other Bs, I think I'm putting them ahead of Kaulig. How's that?
That's absolutely fair. Who else we have here?
Yeah, so this team is one I might be thinking for a B also. Richard Childress Racing, they made that change kind of early mid the year. I don't remember if it was May or June or something like that, replacing Andy Petrie, who had mostly focused on Xfinity. Austin Hill was able to pull off 4 wins this year. Got the win at Homestead to lock him into the championship 4. 20 top 10s, pretty consistent year. Jesse Love also 8th in the point standings, got that win at Talladega. 18 top 10s there. Definitely not a major fall off from where that car was with Creed. Again, I don't know if it's worthy of an A, but maybe 5 wins, 2 guys in the top 10 in points. You can possibly make the argument. It certainly was nowhere near a failure of a season for RCR.
I mean, when you think about it, right? They have 5 wins. JRM, a 4-car team, has 6. I think it was a pretty good year for them, especially Jesse Love. I think he could have had another couple wins. He was up there battling at different times throughout the season and looked really strong, especially on some different tracks. We know this team's dominant streak at these super speedways, Elliot, but there were some short tracks. There were some road courses where we saw Love mixing it up. Hill made his way into the championship 4, wasn't really the most competitive in that race, but yeah, 20 top 10s for him, 18 for Love. I would say A- or B. I'll let you play some, but I'd love to hear from the chat as well what they kind of think about RCR here. Maybe they can help us out a little bit, Elliot. But it's hard to not think this was an A, especially with a rookie and Andy Petrie leaving midway through the season.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think you talked me into it, honestly, especially for how they were in Cup. It wasn't the best year. I think acing it in Xfinity, at least for the most part, is pretty solid. I know we don't have official Xfinity odds yet, but let's say Jesse Love. Do you think 1.5 for a win total might even be a little low? Do you think the books might set it at 2.5?
If they hit it at 1.5, I think I'm going back in. We hit the half a win last year, and it was minus 140 was the juice we had to drink. So I'm sure it'd be juiced to take the over, but I'd love to take the over if we did find it.
Yeah, and that's almost why I'm skeptical of like maybe because
if it's 2.5, you can't bet it, right? If it's 2.5, you can't bet it.
I think so, but then almost 1.5, it's like, well, you have to hit the over there. You feel like he'll win more than once with a full year under his belt. Yeah, A minus B plus. I like that TK for sure. I'm okay putting him in the A's just because looking down the road here, you know, you would think we have to start filling in the bottom tiers, but maybe all the teams we talk about had relatively good years, so maybe we won't put teams at the bottom like we did when we broke down every single Cup team last time we did this.
Yeah. What else do we have here for Xfinity?
Next up, another one of the big teams, Joe Gibbs Racing. Chandler Smith was their lead guy for the year. 2 wins, 5th in the standings. Absurd amount of top 5s, top 10s, 17 and 22 respectively. Sheldon Creed ended up 6th in the points. Still not able to get that win. And these numbers just look so wild next to each other. No wins, 16 top 5 finishes. What did he have? It's probably 5 or 6 runner-ups. Just some ridiculous amount of P2s.
Yeah.
As well as 23 top 10s more than Chandler Smith.
That's absurd.
It's certainly nuts. He'll have to get there eventually. Hopefully, Haas factory team next year is the team to get him over the hump. They had a rotating cast in their other cars. The guy you have to talk about, though, is Eric Almirola. He made 14 starts this year, ended up 17th in the points.
Oh, cow.
He beat 6 full-timers in the standings, and he beat 3 other drivers that had 28-plus starts, and I think they did 32 races. So he ran half the year and whooped ass. I mean, 3 wins, 8 top 5s, 9 top 10s in just 14 starts. Almirola did what he needed to do there. Ryan Truex, another guy I wanted to mention. 11 starts total. I think 2 of them were with Sam Hunt, but he had 2 wins, Dover and Daytona, 3 top 5s and 6 top 10s. Definitely a guy who we're hoping gets a few more starts and good equipment there and was part of Joe Gibbs Racing story. But at the end of the day, they didn't win a title. So can it be an ace season for a team that goes out with, I mean, most of the time I feel like the JGR cars were the best on the track. Maybe they just kind of shot themselves in the foot with only the 2 full-time guys who have not, Sheldon Creed, notorious for not being a winner, and Chandler Smith, a guy who can win at Richmond and maybe not many other places.
This is a weird season for JGR in Xfinity, right? Like super weird, man, because like Sheldon fell short of expectations, did not get the win, did not get to the championship 4. Chandler Smith also fell short a little bit, had some looks that the internet wasn't super fond of with, he was taking some shrapnel. We had times where it was like Ty Gibbs was doing donuts after getting wrecked out of a road course, takes out Chandler Smith. So, we got Eric Almirola throwing punches in driver team meetings, allegedly. Like a lot of weird shit going on. So I don't think you can put them in the A because of everything I just went through. But I mean, God damn it, if Eric Almirola wasn't on one this year, I mean, he was excellent. He was a great moneymaker for Xfinity. I think a couple weeks ago, we actually might have given him the Bettors MVP just because how damn good he was and how easy he was to bet on. And Ryan Truex, same thing, dude. Like this guy was brilliant every time he got in the car, whether it was a road course like Portland and he's mixing it up, or whether it's a familiar territory like Dover or Super Speedway. He was in the mix. And we didn't even mention Christopher Bell, who went 2 for 2 running this 20 car as well. Shout out to our guy Marcus in the chat for that one.
Yeah, John Hunter Nemechek ran a few times in these cars as well.
Yeah, JHN won twice, I think, too.
Yeah, they were. I figured I'd focus more on the Xfinity only guys, but yeah, that is part of their year as well. Yeah, the 20 Xfinity car, 8 wins with 4 different drivers. Again, arguably the best equipment. They just didn't really have a full-time guy. It'll be exciting to watch guys like Taylor Gray in that car next year with Ty Gibbs, technically the owner of that. B team for potential versus execution. Yeah, they're certainly not an A, but I don't think they're a C either. So I think probably a B, I guess probably ahead of Kaulig because they won a lot. But for teams like that, I mean, it was kind of the same formula we used for like Hendrick and Gibbs in the Cup Series was if you're not winning the title, was it really a successful season? Could it be an A season?
Right.
I think JGR, we'll give it a straight B. We don't have any B pluses in the Bs. We'll give Kaulig probably a B minus. Straight B for JGR seems to work for me.
Yeah, I'm about it. What else we got?
All right, so they're the big five really in Xfinity, but we wanted to talk about some smaller teams. Big Machine Racing, first of all, Parker Kligerman in the 48, what turned out to be his swan song, 10th in the points, didn't have a win, but god damn it if he shouldn't have won that Roval race. 5 top 5s and 15 top 10s, overall a solid season for that 48. It's tough to know where to put them because they're not really a team that expects to go out there and win all the time. Maybe that'll change with Nick Sanchez in the car next year. One of those where obviously they're looking for another win, but I'm not really sure where to put them. B or a C for me, if you had gun to my head, But we got to talk it out a little more, I think.
Yeah, this is a tough one too. I'd love to hear what the IVT family thinks in the chat because, look, I mean, you add a win to this resume for Parker Kligerman, 5 top 5s, a potential win, 15 top 10s. Like that's a damn good year. Like, how many times this season, whether it was at a super speedway or a road course, you'd look out and you say, holy shit, Parker Kligerman's running top 5 and like he's got a chance to maybe win this son of a bitch. And I know I felt that way multiple super speedways this year. So
yeah,
I don't want to keep throwing everyone in the Bs. Our Bs and As are getting pretty long here, but it's hard not to think, they don't deserve a B, Elliot. Yeah,
I mean, coming to look at it, especially if you see some of the other teams I put on the board, we may not have any failures, as of these here. As a one-car team, they were better than Kaulig. Yeah, that's honestly more consistency there, even without the wins. I mean, I'm okay with putting them in the Bs, Seth, if you are.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think maybe we'll put them just ahead of Kaulig there. They didn't get to victory lane, but I think the expectations continue to go up for this team next year. I know we're talking about 24, but for 25, Nick Sanchez, a guy who won multiple times this year in trucks and ran really well. They're going to want to do better. So next year, if it's this stat line with Sanchez, maybe it's more a C or D season rather than a B or B minus.
Agreed.
2 more teams left specifically that we wanted to hit on. I feel like Sam Hunt Racing, they didn't run a driver full-time. I don't think they're running a driver full-time next year. I know they're moving to a bigger shop. Not certain what their plans are. The 26 car was 19th in the owner points. They ran 10 different drivers this year I think they ran a second car at times too. Corey Heim is the story here. 13 starts, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. Looked really good. And again, one of those deals where it's like, why isn't he here full time? The other 2 guys to get successful finishes here, we saw Ed Jones pull that top 5 at Portland. Jeffrey Earnhardt also had a top 10 in this car. This is mostly about Heim, and I feel like this is another one of those teams that are on the upswing. Maybe this is a spot for a C. Maybe it's better for this team to just have a full-time guy, maybe go 2 cars full-time in one, get your part-time money making in another. Maybe they're not to a point yet where they can do that. Maybe this is almost like Spire had to take a bunch of guys with money first, and then they got a full-time, and then they improved. Maybe that's the case for Sam Hunt as well.
That almost feels exactly like the play here, right? Like, I feel like they are kind of just taking the money and putting whoever in there that they can get at this point. And I mean, look, dude, like when Corey Heim was in that car, there were a couple times where I was like, holy shit, is Corey Heim going to win a race? I mean, damn fast, as you allude to, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. And I would even say there was a little more meat left on that bone, some finishes that didn't go his way that very well could have. So, yeah, I like what Sam Hunt's doing, but I think it's kind of what you said. Like, let's step up here. Let's see what you can do. Let's put someone full-time in this car and see what we can do for a year.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with a C. They did what they needed to do, but
do we have a full-time driver for Sam Hunt this next year?
But I don't think they've announced any plans yet. As far as I know, if the comments have a better memory than I do, then they can certainly let us know. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure what they're doing. I do remember seeing a post though that they are moving into a bigger shop, so they definitely could run multiple cars next year, at least more consistently.
Good for them.
The one other smaller team I felt like we had to talk about specifically was RSS Racing with Ryan Sieg, a guy who's been an Xfinity lifer almost. He's been around, ended up 13th in the points this year. Man, did he come so close to 2 wins. Oh. There were a few times at the end of the year where you could have said he had maybe the best car in the race. 4 top 5s in 2024. 3 of those finishes were runner-ups. And literally was it Texas to Sam Mayer, that close to winning there. If the cautions fall differently at Vegas, he takes that one from Allmendinger, and also was runner-up at Talladega. 9 total top tens. I don't quite know if you can give him an A, because they also had Kyle Sieg run poorly enough that they had to put Ryan in the other car to try to boost the owner points. And they're a team that is mostly in that mid pack with, your JR Motorsports, your Alpha Prime, your Jordan Anderson. Some of these other teams we may hit on a little bit to give some auxiliary grades too. But I feel like just with Ryan Sieg continuing to have his work and his talent rewarded, getting so close to wins, I feel like they know they're so close to the breakthrough. And next year they'll really be wanting that for Sieg in that 39, assuming he goes back to it.
Yeah, I mean, talk about blue balls, right? I mean, there's a couple times this guy has been so damn close to getting that win and just can't pull it off. You feel for him. It's like a couple times it felt like at the track just kind of like took the air out of it, right? Like you just felt so bad for a guy who's come so close so many times. But 4 top 5s, 9 top 10s, as you allude to, very solid year. But I just it's hard for me to like give them anything more than a C though, because you're right. Like Kyle Sieg is not progressing. He's not improving like Ryan has. So it's just really hard to give him anything more like than that. Like, I know they're brothers, but like at some point, if you don't improve, I don't think you can drag your family's race team down, but by having bad performances like that, it's just how I feel. And I want to see more from Kyle Sieg in the coming seasons.
Yeah, I think Kyle Sieg, I don't know that he really was racing all that much before the pandemic. I think I remember reading that he's kind of new to the game also. So maybe it is one of those times where he's like, you either got to perform or maybe we throw someone else in the car if they continue to raise their performance like we saw at times where legit toward the end of the year showing speed every single week Ryan Sieg was.
Agreed. I think we have a couple smaller teams to round out the Xfinity Series tiers that we're not going to rank them or anything, but a couple to discuss here, Elliot, unless we had any more.
Yeah, no, just because I wasn't sure what all to say about a lot of these teams, but we've talked at times this year about our Motorsports. Alfredo won the Dash for Cash, ended up 15th in the points, got a couple of top 5s. Alpha Prime was kind of up and down. I thought Brennan Poole being 16th in the points, a top 5, 2 top 10s, moderately respectable. I think it was Spring Talladega where it was Jesse Love and then like 4 Alpha Prime cars behind Tommy Joe Martin's team. I thought maybe would get there. Jordan Anderson Racing at times looked good. Jeb Burton, former race winner, of course, had 3 top 10s this year. Parker Retzlaff had a pair of top 5s. We talked about Austin Green a lot on the road courses, and then some other teams past that. I didn't know if they were worthy of putting up a grade, but do you have anything that you want to throw out there for any of those smaller teams or anybody else in Xfinity that we didn't touch on?
Well, my love for Anthony Alfredo, Fast Pasta. I think he was great on the super speedways this season. Even showed up at places like Dover, had a nice top 10 run there as well. Won that Dash for Cash that day. So I would say it was a great season for our Motorsports. We'll see how they fare switching drivers in 2025. Brennan Poole, as you allude to as well, almost stealing a win. That was pretty wild. He's in the podcast game now, I see as well. So got a lot of love for our guy Brennan Poole out there and what he's doing for the industry as a whole. And hey, 16th for a guy who we kind of just thought was, almost a guy going to run back markers for a lot of his career. I think that's a success as well. So hats off to them. Jordan Anderson, that's a tough one, right, Elliot? Like Retzlaff, he started off the season so good at those super speedways that you thought, hey, maybe this guy could pull one out for Gunk Racing, and just couldn't get it done for Gunk there on the hood there. And same with Burton, had some good runs, but end up still 19th in the points. So overall, like good for these lower teams here.
Yeah, again, just the fact they're worth mentioning. I feel like they had some good and a lot of good stories in the mid-pack and Xfinity there that eventually you see make these bigger moves to the top. All teams that on their day could contend for a win, even if that day is Daytona, Atlanta, or Talladega, or on a road course if they get lucky.
I am curious, maybe the one we didn't mention, I'm curious to see how they do in 2025. ARM Racing, they got Harrison Burton in that car. I mean, can he make them better? I think he can. He's a really good Xfinity Series driver, man. I know it hasn't gone his way in Cup so far, minus the win at Daytona earlier this season, but ARM is one who I think we might be ranking next season, depending on how old HB does down there.
I think you might be throwing an R in there. That's not. I think it's just AM Racing.
Oh, is it just AM? Yeah, you might be right. You might be right.
So. Apologies if it is ARM and I missed that. But if I were to give them a grade for this year, it'd be incomplete because they went with Deegan, then they kind of bailed on it. There was a lot of things from that team that's like, hey, do we really know what the fuck we're doing here? Maybe we don't. Let's put Logano in the car. Let's put Barry in the car. Figure it out. And then they went with the money with guys like Lawless Allen or like Dylan Lupton ran that car for a race or something. But yeah, a guy like Harrison Burton coming down from Cup, a guy that was clearly rushed to Cup too soon. And now we'll see if he can really help that team out. You're right. I think they definitely will be a team that we talk about more extensively this time next year, whether it's a pass or a fail or somewhere in the middle, yet to be seen, of course.
Yeah, you're definitely right. It is AM Racing. My apologies to everyone over there. I think where I got confused is that the acronym is AMR. So I think that's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right.
I'm also a dumbass, so you can just cover what you want as well, folks.
Hey, give yourself some credit. Give yourself some credit. All right, so let's sorry, I took that off the screen a little early there, but we're going to shift over to our Truck Series tier maker. I thought that I could just do a little, like have the Xfinity one up and then swap it right to the trucks to anybody noticing, but I went off the screen there for a little bit. In the Truck Series, we have to lead off with ThorSport. They won the championship with Ty Majeski. 3 wins, 10 top 5s there, but it really was not super impressive down the board. Ben Rhodes, a 2-time champion, didn't really come close to winning at all this year, I feel like. Only 3 top 5s, and he was 9th in the points. Matt Crafton, maybe he's over the hill. Just an abysmal year, just 1 top 5, 14th in the standings. And Jake Garcia, a young racer that a lot of people were really hyped on, only 2 top 10s all year, P17 in the points. Is it fair to give a team who won the championship and give them like a B, or I don't want to quite say a C, but I think a B is where I would put ThorSport, because they did have Majeski win the title, but he only snuck in the championship 4 because Christian Eckes was an asshole and dumped Taylor Gray. And then we would, it would have been 5th, 9th, 14th, and 17th, and you wouldn't think of giving ThorSport an A. I don't think in that case.
This is a really tough one as well, right? I mean, first of all, they're not based in Charlotte. They're up along Lake Erie there in Sandusky, Ohio. So, kind of competing a little bit of a disadvantage. Allegedly, they didn't have a legitimate engineer until about halfway through the season. Got a kid right out of college. So, I mean, that's kind of a miss. And I think, we saw that early in the year, right? Like all these guys were kind of struggling. Majeski was hanging around the front occasionally, but his wins came later in the season, ends up getting that W after getting fined that week for going home to vote as well. But yeah, I think a B is absolutely fair, Elliot, because Ben Rhodes, I mean, really nowhere. He kind of came out of nowhere for a second at Phoenix there too. Like, or maybe the race before Phoenix, I think it was Martinsville where he came out and almost won before he got moved out of the way as well by Eckes. But yeah, down year for Ben Rhodes. Matt Crafton, 1 top 5. That's just not good for a guy like Crafton, right? Like Crafton is someone who's just a dog, and we didn't get to see that dog mentality for a lot of the season. And then Jake Garcia, maybe the most disappointing driver, 17th in points. I think that's fine, but just 2 top 10s. I don't know. I think we were looking to see a little bit more kind of like a Lane Riggs-esque season from young Garcia.
Yeah, no doubt about it. At least I can take a little pride. I remember we had Phil on from Full Tank with Phil. He was big on Garcia. I was big on Lane Riggs. Neither of us were looking that great most of the year. Neither were anywhere close to a title, but at least Lane Riggs got to victory lane a couple of times. I mean,
he could have maybe made it to the Final 4 if he would have won one, a race sooner or so.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. Moving on now to TRICON Garage. I almost feel the same way as with ThorSport. They did have Corey Heim as the dominant driver in terms of victory lane. 6 wins, P2 in the points, 14 top 5s, 18 top 10s. Down the board, I mean, Taylor Gray, respectable enough, 8 top 5s, 6th in the points. But then you had 2 guys that just basically didn't show up. But for a team like TRICON that has become arguably, they are the top Toyota team now, almost taking the mantle from Kyle Busch Motorsports. Tanner Gray, 13th with 5 top 10s. Dean Thompson, 16th with 6 top 10s. Not necessarily what you're looking for there. I feel like TRICON, another a very top heavy that maybe didn't perform quite as well as they should, but also maybe I'm giving, I'm expecting too much from them possibly, because when we looked at it when it was just David Gilliland without the big funding from Toyota, maybe it's a team that they've needed the Toyota funding to get to 4 trucks, and maybe they're still getting used to that. And maybe I should give them a little bit of a pass for that.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like, I just expected Tanner Gray's, like, I mean, let's be honest, Tanner Gray's a disappointment here, right? Like, Taylor Gray, you would take the season he had, should have had a win at the end of the year as well. So you'll take what Taylor did in that truck, but Tanner Gray, huge disappointment. Feels like he's regressed a little bit. We touched on him a couple episodes ago, and him getting re-signed there. Dean Thompson, occasionally he would show up and have speed, but I felt like more times than not, you'd hear Michael Waltrip, there goes Dean Thompson. And, Dean Thompson's spinning out in the infield or something. So
Well, he paid for it because he's not in that car next year. Or not in that truck next year.
yeah. So old Deanie kind of drags this team down, as is Tanner Gray. So yeah, I think a B is totally just. Like, if you're gonna knock the Truck Series champion winning team up there in ThorSport, I think you have to knock down TRICON a little bit as well, just because 6 wins, but ultimately you didn't win the championship, and no one else on your team won, or outside Taylor Gray for one race was not close to winning.
Yeah, and clearly they're expecting better next year. Heim is going to be back for another year. He could go. You could tell me Heim wins 10 truck races next year. I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised. Because feels like they threw away a lot of races this year too, that they really should have won. And then you could arguably you could feel like with Gio Ruggiero, you could definitely call it an upgrade. And with Breidinger, at least the lateral move with Dean Thompson usually will keep her equipment cleaner than Thompson, but I guess that's yet to be seen. And another year under the belt for Tanner Gray. Maybe he goes out there, takes the checkered flag in 25.
Yeah, he's the veteran in the room, right? Like, you got Corey Heim, who's the race winner. He's the one everyone's awing over, but Tanner Gray is a veteran locker room type guy. Like he is the guy you come in, you don't pay him the sexy contract or anything, but he's going to give stability to that team, going to be able to help guys like Gio and gals like Toni continue to improve here in 2025. So I think that's really his role, and I'm excited to see him flourish in it, hopefully in 2025.
It'd be exciting to watch for sure, like we talked about on the previous segment. So not having the top 2 teams as A's, maybe that surprises some people, but I feel like we're going to start filling up that A column. And it starts with McAnnally, Hilgeman Racing, Bill McAnnally Racing, whatever you want to call it. They had Christian Eckes as their main guy this year, 3rd in the points, 4 wins, all but 1 race. He was in the top 10, crashed out or had some sort of issue at the 2nd race in Atlanta, and then was top 10 the rest of the way. Just unbelievable consistency. Even though that's not rewarded in this playoff system, ends up 3rd in the final points. Great year there. And to have their other 2 drivers top 10 in points as well, making the playoffs. Tyler Ankrum, 6 top 5s, 12 top 10s, and Daniel Dye, 10th in the points. A couple of top 5s there, 9 top 10 finishes from him. Very respectable year, and I feel like especially the performance of that 19 truck, I'm giving them an A, because this is a team, again, almost kind of like TRICON. We're seeing a shift in the truck series where, especially now that Kyle Busch Motorsports is out of the game, ThorSport's been at the top of the game forever, and now it's who's going to come next. And I feel like MHR has really taken that next step. And especially next year, Connor Mosack, Daniel Hemrick, and Ankrum in those trucks, they're going to be competing for a title with at least one of those, I feel like, next year, if not all 3 making the playoffs again. I feel like it was an A year this year, and they're going to certainly look for an A+ year next year for this team.
Look, you got 3 drivers into the postseason. That's a success. You have Christian Eckes, who pretty much, ran the table as far as consistency going with all those top 10s, 22 of them. That is an absurd number, man. Could you imagine if you could just bet top 10s in trucks, even if it was super juiced to hell? Like, that would just be,
by the end of the year. By the end of the year, it would have been about minus 750 for an Eckes top 10, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, even if you're just betting the top 5 every week, you came away profitable. And, Tyler Ankrum, we touched on him earlier. We're still waiting to see that elite upside. We want to see him get back to victory lane for the first time in the last 4 or 5 years. But overall, good, strong season for him. And Daniel Dye, man, I mean, talk about a good head of lettuce. Holy shit, that guy's got it there. And, found his way to stay out of other people's way late in the season. I felt like early he was another guy. He was with the Lawless Allens and the Lawless Allens and the Dean Thompsons of the world, who was spinning a lot, spinning other people. But he really pulled it together, had a really consistent stretch of finishes there. 2 top 5s, 9 top 10s, as you said. Yeah, I think they are deserving of an A.
Yeah, I mean, they had drivers have good enough years. Both Eckes and Dye will be teammates again next year, full-time at Kaulig Racing in the Xfinity Series. So, yeah, I think it's an A for sure for McAnnally. An exciting year for them to come to. And I feel like this team, just a one-truck team full-time, but I feel like for CR7 Motorsports this year was an absolute fucking slam dunk A+ for them. Grant Enfinger, first of all, just getting a guy like him in the building, a guy who damn near probably should have won the truck championship last year in a ThorSport truck, a guy who's been there and done that for years. You get him in the building, ends up 4th in the points, gets your team's first 2 wins at the end of the year when they need it the most to make the championship 4. And he also had that consistency too, 13 top 10s and 8 top 5 finishes there. Another team that's been taken up a level, whether it's, the driver helping the equipment, or both. The equipment getting better, getting a better driver in there. Regardless of what the formula was, it sure worked for CR7 and Cody Rohrbaugh and Grant Enfinger this year.
Yeah, I mean, hard not to put them in the A, right? I mean, Grant, he comes back. He's fired up after how things end in 2023, and wasn't the best start to the season for him. And we're looking around, and he was starting to kind of peak though. Late July, going into the 2-week Olympic break for the Cup Series, we actually both got down on Grant Enfinger to potentially win the Truck Series championship. Rode 18-1 tickets into Phoenix. He led some laps there, but really that was ThorSports race to lose. It felt like going into there, but I mean, great season overall for Grant, especially showing up in clutch situations when he needed to, and just seeing an organization like this bud and continuing to blossom is very encouraging. So yeah, hard not to rank him as the A.
Yeah, I mean, for me, they're the tops this year. I'm giving them an A+ for what they did
Fair.
there. Again, they'll whether they stick to the one full-time truck or try to expand. I know if they keep Enfinger in the roads there, it'll be continued success for them, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Who else do we have here as we round out the Truck Series, Elliot?
Yeah, so next up here, we've got Rev Racing. Nick Sanchez was in the 2 truck this year, 5th in the points, had a pair of wins, good amount of top 5s, 14 top 10s on the year, 11 top 5s. It's actually a more impressive number than I thought, as it sits here in front of me. I'm giving them a B, probably B+, so maybe even ahead of ThorSport and TRICON, because they did what they had to do. It wasn't super duper flashy. There wasn't really a point where Sanchez was a super duper championship contender. Of course, in this system, anybody that can get to victory lane once in a while and run halfway consistently the rest of the time can be a champion. But for me, Rev did what they needed to do, and they moved Sanchez up the ladder, which is partly what this race team is for, to get people who need those opportunities and continue to move them up. For me, a successful season, maybe not an A season. I can make the argument for an A, definitely an A or B+ for Rev, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Nick Sanchez was really a great story this past year. Wins early in the 2024 season, comes back, wins on a short track midway through as well. And look, dude, I mean, I think there are some times where some things went wrong for this team, right? Like they were always one to raise their hand and say, hey, I'll try out a wacky pit strategy. And sometimes it really helped them. Like that helped get Sanchez at least one of his wins this season. But then also it burned them a couple times. And also there were some times where we'd get to the race and Nick Sanchez is driving a backup, and it's hurting him. And I'm on a heavy matchup with him. So I'm sweating that son of a bitch out. So all things considered, though, yeah, you can't take anything away from this team. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to. Nick Sanchez advanced to the next level in just 2-3 years in this equipment. So overall, I think they're probably a B at the lowest.
Yeah, I'm okay with a high B for them. And again, moving Nick Sanchez up the ladder, that's part of their goal. I was trying to look if they'd announced it yet or not. I'm assuming Andres Perez de Lara is probably going to be in this truck next year. He won the ARCA championship for them without a race win, but he won it over the full season. I couldn't figure out if they've announced him or who they announced for that truck next year. But either way, a truck that usually will contend and do fairly well in the trucks. So I expect more of the same from them next year.
100%. Looks like we got Spire up next.
Yep, Spire Motorsports making their foray into trucks. They had Raja Karuth this year in the Hendrick Cars 71. Got his first win there at Vegas early in the year. Wasn't really able to back it up. Only 5 top 5s, 12 top 10s for him there. Ends up 7th in the points. Getting the win, though, definitely big for Spire. Chase Purdy was full-time in the 77. Ended up 15th in the points. Only a handful of top 10s there for him, pair of top 5s. They ran the 7 truck also with a lot of different guys. Kyle Busch gets a couple of wins. They had Connor Zilich make his national debut at COTA and smoke the field, and then smoke himself into turn 1.
Yeah,
a couple other guys. I think Mosack ran that a couple of times. Corey LaJoy ran it at Daytona, I think. Did they have a few Hendrick guys run it this year? I don't remember. But either way, we're more focused on the full-time guys. Overall, success for Spire, too. I mean, they're in B territory for me, at least, for sure.
I mean, we saw a lot of cats come into these trucks, and didn't Clint drive one of these trucks? Am I right on that?
Yeah, Boyer, I think, was at Nashville. I think he drove.
Yeah. Yep. We saw Clint. We saw, I believe, Butterbean drove one of these trucks at one point. Like,
I think he was one of the TRICON rotating trucks.
Oh, okay. But yeah, man, I think like we always knew who was going to be ripping that 7. It was going to be someone that you would need to watch out for. They had speed. I think like they deserve to at least be ranked a B just because, new team in this series. Raja gets his first career win that no one saw coming, 80-1 ticket. I know a lot of bettors were cashing on that. And Chase Purdy, like this is Chase Purdy, right? Like this is kind of what we've come to expect with Chase Purdy, a guy who has a lot of funding behind him. I feel like he has a little bit of a cult following as well. And he has a couple tracks each year where, hey, to bet on Chase Purdy. And aside from those tracks, like fade Chase Purdy, right?
Yeah, and he's another one of those guys, younger driver that just some time in a good truck can only help you out. So another guy that certainly could be a positive, assuming he keeps that right in 25, which we assume Carruth also is going to be there as well. I know that usually, the Cup Series, we have stuff, we knew McDowell was going to Spire in like May, but the Truck Series, sometimes they sort that out after Christmas time before Daytona. So, we're just seeing a lot of silly season stuff now coming out for some of the bigger rides. So,
yeah. Yeah, it's funny how that always happens, but I guess business moves a little bit slower down at those levels, which makes sense when you really think about it.
Yeah, and some guys, if they can get the Xfinity ride, they'll probably take it. Maybe they don't want to do the either way. Don't want to do the trucks. All right, so a couple more truck teams left. Nice Motorsports. A few years ago, they were really one of the dominant teams in the Truck Series. Even dating back to last year when Hocevar made the championship for.
Yeah.
This year was not quite that for Nice Motorsports. They had some rotating cast, of course. The highlight for me was Caden Honeycutt, 19th in the points, making 14 starts. Had a pair of top fives there. A couple of times where he looked like he may have race-winning speed there. They're full-time drivers, not super-duper great. Bailey Curry won top 10 for the year and was 18th in the standings. Matt Mills, again, both for Curry and for Mills. They were guys who had kind of run shitters before, and it was good to see them get a full-time opportunity in what at least we thought was decent equipment. Didn't work too well for Mills, especially 23rd in the points, which was below 4 part-time drivers, including Honeycutt. Did have a top 5 and 2 top 10s, but Mills, the third worst full-time driver in the series this year, only ahead of Lawless Allen and Spencer Boyd, two guys who maybe you don't want to be associated with in a full-time seat. For Nice, I mean, they were able to lock down Honeycutt for next year. They got that win at Darlington with Chastain. But overall, I don't think this is a very successful season for Nice. I think they might even be in D territory for me. And if it weren't for Honeycutt looking moderately successful, I may put him in the Fs.
Yeah, so, there are some bad runs, man. Like when we're getting this last truck that was just putting absolute shitters in it, and this was always the one that was spinning around. It was kind of, a tough scene. Matt Mills, I love Matt Mills, right? I mean, seems like if you want to have a beer with someone in the Truck Series, I think Matt Mills would be up there towards the top of my list. My affinity for Al Nice. I think this guy's a fucking certified weapon. I actually tried fitting him on the thumbnail right next to Dale Jr. Couldn't do it. Al Nice is a big son of a bitch. He wasn't fitting on on this thumbnail.
You could have made Dale a little smaller. We can make his ego a little smaller if we want.
Yeah, that's a good point. People love Dale though, so got to make him big.
People sure do love Dale, don't they?
Yes, they do, my friend, including you and I. And I'll say this. I think it is still a C season for them because 2 reasons. One, you got guys like Ross Chastain who are loyal to this brand, and Al helped him out when he needed it. And not only did Ross get a win for him, I believe at North Wilkesboro, if I'm remembering correctly, and not only did he get him a win, but he brought him Caden Honeycutt. This was a guy Ross has worked with, he has mentored, and he was the one who recommended Caden to run some Nice equipment. And I think they have the guy for the future. I think Caden Honeycutt is the real fucking deal. Yeah. This is one of those guys I'm staying on a fucking swivel for when I see some 2025 Truck Series future odds. Win total, if it's a half a win, take the fucking over.
Yes.
If we can get a long shot championship on him, I think he'll be disrespected. We're going there too, Ellie. I mean, this is a guy who it did look like had top 5 speed multiple times and race winning speed as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Definitely a guy that'll be disrespected in the odds, but I think Nice is one of those teams where if they have really good drivers in the equipment, they're going to go out there and do well. And if they have guys that either aren't used to running good equipment or maybe just don't have it, they're not going to run so well. So maybe that's the case for some of these other gentlemen that were in these trucks. A couple more teams left here. We can run through them fairly quickly. For our Motorsports, running the 38 with Lane Riggs. Yeah. Slow start, ended up 11th in the points, pair of wins there. For his season stats, 2 wins, 7 top 5s, 10 top 10s. That's over the full season of 23 races. The last 9 races, both of those wins, 5 out of those 7 top 5s, 7 out of those 10 top 10s. He ended on a heater, and I think he's going to take that into next year. Front row maybe for this year, B or C, but I think we are starting to see the true potential of Lane Riggs come back.
Yeah, I'm fine wherever you want to put him. I think B or C is respectable for what they did. Lane, I mean, talk about a guy who I think we were just disappointed, right? Like, I know there are a couple times you and our guest on this program, Rod, even would throw out, hey, let's get a Lane Riggs, long shot top 5 going for a short track. And he was qualifying well. He had speed coming off the truck and would just spin out, right? Like that's exactly what we saw at Martinsville earlier this season, and really came into his own down the stretch. So, yeah, I'm glad you threw him in B because I think they do deserve to be a B team with what we saw. I mean, he was the hottest driver the last 2 months of the season. He was a guy you were looking to bet in multiple ways. So I am thrilled to see what we can get from Mr. Riggs and FRM as a whole in the truck series next year. And just cool to see them, front row continue to kind of have a one-team truck here. And even especially in this wild, unprecedented time that is the wild, wild west of NASCAR negotiations.
Yeah, but I mean, Lane Riggs, he really did need that heater to even be near B territory. It's like I said, the last 9, he got most of those. So in the first 14, no wins, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s.
I mean, we would have ranked him a D or an F, right? I mean, it would
have been an abject F. If he didn't get a win and only a handful of top 5s and top 10s, it would have been a failure of a year from a truck that has been up there for the championship. We were expecting a lot out of Lane Riggs. We saw that toward the end of the year, and that definitely bumped him up.
Never count out of Riggs, man. Just like Scott, baby.
Little throwback there. 2 more teams left. Run through them pretty quickly. Rackley W.A.R. They started out with Ty Dillon, 22nd in the points. He ran 18 races, only had 2 top 10s. Then their boy Dawson Sutton steps in the truck, got that top 5 at Kansas. He ran 7 starts. He's full-time. We already talked about they're moving their operation to North Carolina, a team that next year, certainly they'll want to be better. They're investing in their family now with Dawson Sutton being in that ride. I feel like any team that's associated with Ty Dillon is going to be near the bottom, though. I feel like it's a D for me, only out of an F because they were smart enough to kick Ty Dillon's ass out of that car, which unfortunately Kaulig and Cup was not smart enough to do, bringing him back for next year. But definitely the upside is there for Rackley W.A.R., and I think it keeps him out of the Fs for the year.
I had totally forgotten that Ty Dillon's going back to Cup Series for a minute. That entered the.
Sorry, I ruined your night with that one.
I'm gonna need a couple more beers for bed after hearing that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, D's exactly where I think I'd put him as well, Elliot, because they have the guy for the future in Dawson Sutton. They're now connected to Harvick's as well. Those guys are going to be weapons for this organization. They're making the move to Charlotte. You love to see it. But why was Ty Dillon ever in this truck? And why could Ty Dillon not get more than 2 top 10s in 18 races? That is terrible. I mean, that is. And then so you're wondering, okay, maybe Rackley W.A.R. just doesn't have the equipment. Dawson Sutton jumps in at Kansas, has a top 5 car. I mean, did back into that top 5, and we were on that long shot ticket as well there, Elliot. But hey, I appreciate him.
The fact that it was even considered, we really wouldn't have for Ty Dillon. And with Josh Berry's driven this truck before for races to get him up there. We saw Matt D winning it and have a year and a half of relatively respectable racing.
Yeah.
But for Ty Dillon, why he was in that truck, I got 2 words for you, and they're both the same. Pop. It's Pop's money. And that's the same
I was gonna say money, yeah. Dollar bills, Benjamins, whatever you want to call it.
And then the last team, I wanted to talk about Stewart Friesen and Halmar Friesen Racing. Almost totally forgot about him, because it was the worst year for him. The last 2 years in particular for Stewart Friesen have just been bad. No wins, 1 top 5, 7 top 10s for the year, 12th in the points. Worst number of top 5s and joint worst top 10s with 2023 in a full season in the trucks. This is a guy that's been around since, I think, 2016, 2017. Just unfortunately going downhill for the 52. I think you have to consider this a failure of a year for the Friesen crew.
Yeah, because there were even some tracks, I can't remember them off the top of my dome, but that they were expected to perform very well at. They had great history at, and usually would just let you down. Like he had some speed, a couple different races, and then would just kind of not have the late run speed for whatever reason. I felt like they weren't good at making adjustments throughout the race. They could unload quick. And if you're playing any type of truck DFS, which God bless your soul if you are, I mean, Stewart might qualify well. He might get up there, and then you're slowly losing points throughout the race. So yeah, F for me here, and hopefully they can pull it together because, dude, look, I mean, everyone loves Stewart Friesen, right? Like the Canadian boys. And I believe if I'm remembering correctly too, he even has a couple one-off starts in the Cup Series. I believe at a Bristol Dirt, maybe. I think he got in there and mixed it up.
He's a big dirt racer. One of the things I was going to mention was maybe not having Bristol Dirt this year was something that was a detriment, because normally he would also run the second truck for his wife too and try to get her in the race. But
yeah,
just one of those years where, you know, I feel like I heard a rumor or two that maybe Friesen might not come back and do this next year. There were a couple of years ago when he didn't make the playoffs, he bailed on running the full year and just went and ran dirt races in the playoffs a couple of times. So definitely a guy, again, it's good to see these kind of racers out here, but Stewart Friesen has earned himself the notoriety by good performances in the past to be discussed in topics like this.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the last couple of years have not been the best for the 52 truck.
We're pulling for you, Stewart. Come on, buddy. Come on. You're repping an entire country. You got an entire country behind you, buddy.
We don't have your DJ Kenningtons or anybody anymore to represent no more Rafael Lassard either. Remember him?
That's a deep cut.
Winner at Talladega for Kyle Busch Motorsports. I don't have any notes on anyone else from trucks. Anyone else you wanted to pull from?
No, not necessarily. I'm excited to see what we continue to get from the truck series. It was definitely a shift in the truck landscape, right? No Kyle Busch Motorsports, I think totally just shifted everything, but it was great to see some of these teams step up, and I'm excited for a couple of them that we've mentioned, like Rackley W.A.R, continue to take that next step here next season, and our guy Caden Honeycutt in some Nice equipment.
Yeah, man, like we talked about, both the Xfinity and the truck series are going to be super duper exciting next year. We are waiting day in, day out for those odds to show up, and we'll break them down for you as soon as we get them, because Lord knows we want to talk about them. We had a lot of weeks where the Xfinity series put on a better race than Cup, and arguably the truck series would too. So we love the lower series here, and we hope you guys do too. And you can let us know what you love, what you don't love in our survey. We're going to try to get that wrapped up, get the giveaway out, but we want to know what you think of the show. So please let us know. That link is in the description.
Yeah, please check that out, guys. We want to get a couple more, so as we continue to build some new tools, continue to build some new features on this show, after the show as well, that we're getting stuff that everyone wants, and continue to make us better bettors, better handicappers, better community members. So thank you everyone so much for watching. If you enjoy this type of content, please like this video. Also subscribe to the channel if you are new. We are right on the cusp of 1,300 subscribers. We want to get there by the end of the year. It'd be a great Christmas gift to Elliot, myself, everyone over here in Between Media. If you enjoy what we do on the NASCAR front, we also have fantasy football, NFL betting, also our PGA team knocking it out of the park. They'll be back here in early January. We even have a new entertainment betting show, Elliot, and Steve Trash, Jake on that show. They've been hitting winners as well. So whether you're into sports and sports betting, or whether you're just into the entertainment betting as well, we got you covered on all fronts, man.
Yeah, that's certainly exciting to watch. And Lord knows everyone needs help for fantasy football playoffs that are coming up too, as we're into December now. So
you're coming at me. You got a good squad this year, my friend. Let's go.
Yeah, maybe so. But hey, I'll be looking for help from the rest of the IBT fam too. And we hope you guys, the IBT fam, have enjoyed the show tonight, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for rolling on down the back road with us, and we'll see you next time.
See you.